New Moon in Taurus by Angela. Occurring May 16th. Quote, "The most fatal illusion is the settled point of view. Since life is growth and motion, a fixed point of view kills anybody who has one." Brooks Atkinson. At the start of this new moon cycle, Uranus, the planet of sudden out-of-the-blue events, has transited into curious Gemini. Venus is still in Gemini for a few days too, so cultivating a natural curiosity is a path to connecting to people now. Planets moving through Gemini throughout this cycle form an easy relationship to planets still in Aries. Unusual, even shocking events may unfold in our lives. Try to have the courage to be open-minded, be willing to override your preconceived notions and expectations as new information appears. Expect the unexpected, and above all, be curious. Allow me to illustrate an example of the above. The following story is true. It was a sunny spring afternoon in the early 2000s. I had finished my classes and workday earlier than usual, so I decided to walk the few blocks off campus into downtown. I was walking down the busy sidewalk when a voice called out to me. "Can you spare some change for food, please?" Without slowing down, I turned my head slightly to see that the voice had come from a man sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against a building. As a graduate student, I had been taking classes on campus in the middle of the city for several years by then, and was accustomed to being asked for money by the unhoused people in the area. For that reason, I had taken to carrying granola bars and easy open tuna fish tins in my backpack to offer to anyone asking me for spare change. That particular day, though, I had no food with me. I considered ignoring the man and walking on, but there was something in his voice, in the way he'd said, "please." Not wanting to give him money when I couldn't be sure of how it would be spent, I glanced around. Options for a quick filling meal were scarce. Spying a Jamba Juice across the street, I headed over to it and purchased a large smoothie. I returned to the man, handing it to him. He thanked me and I began to walk away, but then something stopped me and I turned around. "Would you like some company?" I asked impulsively. "Oh, sure," the man replied. I sat down beside him, glad that I'd been dressed casually that day in jeans, a sweatshirt, and a windbreaker. I shrugged out of my backpack, pulling it around into my lap so that I could lean against the building facing the people walking by us. Continuing to stare straight ahead without looking at the man, I energetically extended my feelers and began scanning his mental body and emotional body, absorbing a download of information about him. His energy was very quiet. There was a stillness in him that put me at ease. As though sensing what I was doing, the man remained quiet for a few minutes, not rushing me into conversation. Finally, he took a sip of his Jamba Juice and said, "I haven't had one of these in a long time." Then he added, "By the way, I'm not contagious. I know I look scary, but I just have a hereditary skin disorder called ichthyosis. My mother had it, so don't worry, you won't catch it from me." I looked over at him then studying him more closely. Due to the unorthodox way I get to know people, primarily through sensing information about them, I hadn't really looked at the man yet. Now I saw that he did, indeed, look scary. Without being overweight, he had folds of dry, scaly skin all over his body wherever his skin showed. It made it nearly impossible for me to read emotion in his face. The effect was, admittedly, otherworldly and grotesque, yet his voice was beautiful. "I like your voice," I said honestly, and felt him smile. "My name's David. What's yours?" "Angela." "Nice to meet you. I think we're about the same age. I'm 23. How old are you?" 22. I turned to look at him again. He looked ancient, like something prehistoric molded from clay, It was hard to believe that he was only a year older than me. I realized I was staring and quickly averted my gaze, embarrassed. He nodded to my backpack. Are you a student? What are you studying? Yeah, communication. I'm taking a philosophy and communication class, among other things. I'm having a hard time with it, I admitted. We're studying Nietzsche, and I just don't understand him at all. I've read Nietzsche, David said quietly. You've read Nietzsche? How do you know Nietzsche? I blurted, gaping at him in shock. I love books, replied David simply, pulling his legs up to sit cross-legged and wrapping his arms casually around his knees. So I read every book I can get my hands on, regardless of the topic. I considered his words for a moment. Could you explain Nietzsche to me? Sure, said David, and proceeded to summarize Nietzsche's theories to me in a way that I could grasp. As he explained, I noted his eloquence as a speaker. He had a vast vocabulary. His choice of words and phrasing was intelligent and beautifully articulated. Okay. That makes more sense. Thank you, I said when he'd finished. Just then, another unhoused man approached us, asking if either one of us had a cigarette. We both answered no. But the man continued, asking us if we had any booze. David didn't move, but I felt his energy suddenly extend so that it was wrapping around me in a bubble that felt protective as he answered, No, man, I haven't got any booze and she doesn't either. His tone was calm but held the edge of a warning. After the man left, David's energy retreated from my space as he looked down and said sheepishly, I'm sorry if that was presumptuous. I just don't want guys like that bothering you. I like talking to you. It's rare that I get the chance to talk to a girl like you from the other side of the tracks. I looked up at the sky, processing what he'd said and pondering the inequalities in the world. I imagined his skin disorder prevented people from being able to see him. I couldn't fathom how such an appearance had shaped his life. Meanwhile, I'd begun to learn that people of both sexes could be predatory toward me, so I was wary of strangers. David's protectiveness felt nice. It was still barely past midday with plenty of people walking by, but realizing that David would defend me if necessary made me feel even safer. It's fine, I smiled. Thanks. I like talking to you too. I really don't have any cigarettes either, David continued. I don't smoke. Neither do I said. I don't drink either. I looked at him curiously. So you probably don't do any drugs either, then? No. People can get themselves into serious trouble with those. I laughed, unable to help myself. You know, you're kind of blowing all my stereotypes out of the water. He laughed along with me. I hope that's a good thing. It is, I assured him. We proceeded to talk about ideas and life in a way that I had been unable to do with anyone that afternoon. Having virtually nothing in common except a surprisingly similar wavelength of energy, I was surprised at how easy our conversation flowed on a wide variety of topics that interested me. Unlike some of my fellow students who tried to sound intelligent in order to impress, I sensed David's ability to follow my thoughts was easy, unaffected, and natural, and our mutual curiosity was genuine. I had felt like an outsider for my entire life, wanting desperately to feel understood, and not yet realizing that it was not destined to happen easily for me with people. David understood me. I could sense it in the silences between us. At length, he asked me the time, and I was astonished to see that my watch showed 3 hours had flown by. David had to get going if he was to get a bed at the shelter that night. I understood, but was reluctant to say goodbye, especially when he said he'd be on the move the next day, so I'd never see him again. Watching him then, I became aware that the temperature had dropped, and he was shivering in his t-shirt. Without thinking, I scrambled to unzip my windbreaker, a unisex affair of black and dark blue. Here, please take it. I have another, I said, offering him the jacket and feeling guilty about the fact that I did indeed have another jacket, when David had none. Oh no, thank you, no, he said, waving it away lightly. But you're shivering, please take it, I insisted, not being able to stand seeing him getting cold. No, your heart is huge. No, I'll be fine. Please, I insisted again, still holding out the jacket. A range of conflicting emotions had begun warring inside me. I felt acutely embarrassed by his compliment, as I wasn't offering him my jacket out of some pious sense of charity or a selfish need to make myself feel better. I'd felt a genuine connection with him. I'd sensed that we'd known each other for eons and that we were solid soul friends, but that in our present incarnation, we were from different worlds and I couldn't keep him in my life. The least I could do was give him something to stay warm. David considered the jacket for a moment before abruptly coming to a decision. "Those aren't my colors," he said with finality, and grinned. "What?" I trailed off, dropping my eyes and allowing a slow smile to spread across my face as I tugged my jacket back on. I deeply respected David's pride. Furthermore, the calming stillness I'd sensed in him had not wavered. On the contrary, he seemed oddly content. We stood up and I shouldered my backpack as he gave me a wave goodbye and melted into the crowd. A dull ache was beginning to form in my chest and I felt inexplicably bereft. In the whole time that we'd been talking, David had never touched me. Nevertheless, I had to squelch the rising urge to chase after him, pleading that he not leave me alone on this insane planet. Walking back to campus, I thought of how my fellow student coworkers at the University Office of Financial Aid had recently asked me about my type when it came to whom I was attracted in a romantic sense. I imagined their reactions of abject horror and mute incomprehension if I told them that the soul and personality currently occupying the body of a disfigured, unhoused man named David was my type. Of course I could not tell them that. It was just another one of my precious, meaningful experiences to which my peers could not relate. I would keep my own counsel, savoring the joy of meeting David and nursing the pain of our parting solely in my own mind and heart. To this day, over 20 years later, that single conversation with David remains one of the best conversations of my life. And meeting him never would have happened if I had not allowed a combination of intuition and natural curiosity to guide the way. So during this new moon season in Taurus, try to remain open to your own life-changing shifts and serendipitous moments. You may be shocked at what can happen. Happy new moon, Angela.